our lives changed. I just grabbed the kids and I held them. They kept asking me, "Why are you crying?" And I told them a friend of mine had passed away. He's gone to heaven.
But police found the car and most of Sister early Wednesday morning. Her head, hands, and feet had been cut off.
God's going to take care of him. God's the judgment. God's the judge. I'm not. I pray, Almighty God, Father, that no one else in this world is hurt. Pray for their souls.
I just remember this guy with a big smile on his face and, so happy to see you. We were so close. It was, like a brother. The Adrian that I knew, is not there anymore. The Adrian that I knew that's not him.
Wow.
I don't believe Adrian is evil. I think something flipped with him for him to shoot someone 16 times. It was a kind of madness. I think it was a kind of madness that resulted in death.
We found several holes around the skull and several more holes in the chest area. This is considered overkill. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. No matter what you do as far as this job, there's things out there that you're never prepared for. I've been told you take that feeling, that box. I'm not opening the box unless I have to.
I always believed as growing up, there's always, and where one door closes, another one will open. So I've always had that hope. I'm not to question God and his actions. I know he didn't do it. I know it was evil working. About 2/10 of a mile from my house, Adrian wrestled with my son in middle school and high school and would come over. The last time I saw Adrian is about a couple of weeks beforehand. The Adrian I saw that day, he was there wanting to be there, wanting, having fun. Adrian out there being a normal boy would have ever thought that he could have endangered anybody's life. The sheriff's department had called Adrian that day. Of course, told him no. Our thoughts were going, okay, something's gone wrong with Adrian. Everybody's trying to search for Adrian. Something's happened to Adrian. Not that Adrian has done something. Never dreamed of him hurting someone. You never would have thought that would. Poor Adrian. Just pray for him. That's all I can do.
I guess, I don't know, put up those emotional blockers and kind of tune everything else out. I think that's kind of how I dealt with it best. I can be very uncomfortable talking about him. Just, we were so close. It was, like a brother. Yeah. So this picture is the Adrian that I knew. You know, all these wrestlers, everybody's looking, you know, kind of serious. You got that macho Adrian who's winking at the cameraman taking the picture. That's the Adrian that I like to remember.
Okay, then. Say hey to all the folks at home.
You know, I never saw Adrian with any kind of struggle. You know, so happy to see you. He was struggling a little bit, having some hard times, but didn't seem like it was anything bad enough to lead him to make the decisions that he made.
This particular case was gruesome. This doesn't happen. This never happens. The call came in at around 1:13 that afternoon on Sunday. The reason this all was Adrian's uncle would normally stop by the house and visit his brother, Henry Robinson, and see how things are going on a regular basis. Adrian answers the door. The uncle says, "Hi, I'm stopping by to see how things are going, you know, with my brother." And the uncle could see that something was wrong here as far as the situation, the expression on Adrian's face, which scared him. Adrian Robinson had a high-powered hunting rifle and fired shots at the uncle. He shot at his uncle and ran off into the woods with the high-powered rifle. The uncle calls the sheriff's department. They had several deputies pull up to the house to find out what was going on. They didn't know at the time what they would find inside the house. So the deputies were definitely very cautious and very nervous. Upon going into the house, off to the left was the area where the initial crime happened, probably larger than, say, a garbage can cover. When someone loses that amount of blood, obviously they're unconscious, their heart is beating, and the blood is being put out of the body onto the ground. This particular situation, there was the blood there, but there was no body. And we needed to locate the body. When you walk down to the hall, makeshift tub, that's where we found Mr. Robinson, submerged in a tub in the back of the home, filled with water with him floating in it. The water was bloody, but you could see his knees were sticking out at the time. We found several holes around the skull and several more holes in the chest area, 15 times. This is considered overkill, which means there's a lot of anger within an individual to do something like this. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. We have a homicide. We've determined that Mr. Robinson was murdered and shot multiple times, and that the suspect, Adrian, was not in the house at. The big problem that was there was Adrian's house backed up to a piece of property that was 500 acres of wooded land. Our biggest concern was finding him. We had no idea where he was, but we do know what he did, and that's, murder his father and then run off with a high-powered rifle. We needed to find Adrian.
It's sad. And when you look at this picture of Henry, think this was a sad expression, but that's just the way he was. He was, in a sense, unemotional, just easygoing. My classmate, Henry Robinson, came to us in my 10th grade year, 1963.
Tonight, an accused killer. Police say ditched a car in Yancey's neighborhood.
I saw the news of his murder being broadcast on television.
This tragic story began in Harris County, Georgia, where Sheriff Mike Jolly says Robinson killed his own father by pumping him full of bullets.
Numerous times, 15, 16 times, yes.
I realized that in the school we had talked about all kinds of things. I was quite shocked because I couldn't rationalize or justify it in my mind, knowing the person I'd grown up with. I couldn't imagine any justification for it happening. Who would want to harm Henry? I had to stand still for a moment when I heard this. And the first thing I wanted to do was to get down to his hometown and to see what had happened, and that's what I did.
No matter what you do as far as this job, there's things out there that you're never prepared for. It's haunting. The only thing that I could think of, this whole event was pure evil. You're searching for someone that we're under the assumption that he committed this homicide on his father. My concern was making sure that the citizens were safe. You got a young adult that grew up there all his life with 500 acres of woods behind him. He knew this 500 acres well. You could be walking through the woods for miles and actually get lost in the woods if you don't know where you're going. So you have no idea where he is. Is he behind this tree, that tree? The hair would stand up on the back of your neck, and you get that chill down your spine, like, is he going to shoot me? Is this my last minute on earth because he's going to take me out like he did his father? After 2 days of looking, it was determined that we had an attempt to locate him. So what you do is you put out an all points bulletin, a bolo, be on the lookout for this particular individual, wanted in questioning of a homicide. We did contact the media, newspapers, put out these bolos to different agencies within the county and the county surrounding Harris County.
So the first time I got news something had happened, my parents called me that day and kind of let me know what was going on. Because, I mean, he was, like a big brother to me, and we spent that much time together. And just to hear it, you're just in shock. I just couldn't believe that had happened. It was Adrian, and he made an awful mistake. Just beyond me, I couldn't understand it. I don't think a lot of people did. I wish I knew more about his mental state or his rationality when this happened. We were close. Why didn't you speak up earlier? Why didn't you reach out for help? And just didn't realize that he was, in the state that he was in. When you're having those problems and you do something like his next move is. So we didn't know if he would be arrested or if he wouldn't let somebody arrest him, if he might take his own life. We didn't know what would happen.
I mean, here it is, you got a young individual, good-looking, strapping, did well in high school, was also the state wrestling champion for his weight level, for the state of Georgia and appeared to have a good life in front of him. What happened with your father? What brought you to that level of anger that you would shoot him 16 times and dispose of the body? You had such a good life in front of you. Several days after the incident, we received a call from police up in Virginia. Sister Lucy and Sister Philomena had been kidnapped by Adrian Robinson, taken care of any nuns, Catholic nuns missing from Christ the King Catholic Church. We had no idea that they weren't there. It appears that Adrian went through the 500 acres, then went across the street to the church and the building where the nuns stayed. And he's familiar with them. He knows them well. And he knows Sister Philomena because she's dealt with him before, and Sister Lucy. And he wasn't going to run on his own. He needed some type of leverage. He needed a vehicle. He needed some hostages. He needed money. Well, Sister Philomena and Sister Lucy, they had everything. They were the perfect hostages. And find a motel where he could take the two nuns inside. His intentions were the same intentions that he had with his father. He decided he's going to commit another crime and kill both nuns. He tied Sister Lucy to the bed. He then took Sister Philomena into the bathroom and placed her in the tub. He then proceeded. But before he did that, she looked at him, and her last words to Adrian Roberts was, "I forgive you." I knew Sister Philomena well because all the different programs that I used to do in Harris County and Hamilton, there was no reason for this. No reason to take someone else's life. I don't know if you've ever seen the wooden handle carpet cutters that has a sickle curve to it. He took that and ran it across her throat and proceeded to kill her. And then he proceeded to cut her up into pieces and put her in her bag. You see something like this, you don't think it can get any worse, but it did. That feeling, that anger, that bitterment, and you put it in a box, and it stays out of mind, but not out of sight. This box has been pushed in the corner, and it's a memory that will be with me, but I'm not opening the box unless I have to. In the bathtub with his carpet cutter and his black hefty bags and putting body parts in there. He wanted to dispose of them. Sister Lucy, tied up to the bed, hearing her fellow sister being dragged out of the motel in bags, Sister Lucy broke away from the ties that she had. The only reason done from the ropes and managed to call the police.
He allegedly killed his own father this past weekend in Georgia, where police say Robinson also kidnapped Fogarty and another nun, Lucy Christofic. Robinson eventually drove the nuns to Hampton Roads. Police found most of Sister Philomena Fogarty's body underneath this covering early Wednesday morning had been cut off.
I heard Sister Lucy got away, and then I found out that they had found Sister Philomena. It was horrible. It's just devastating. Our lives changed, and I just couldn't. I just grabbed the kids, and I held them, and they kept asking me, "Why are you crying?" And I told them a friend of mine had passed away. He's gone to heaven. And it makes me very sad because I will miss her. I miss her. We all miss her. We all miss her. It was awful what happened to her. No one should go through that. No one in this world should go through that. And we definitely miss her. It's like a deep hole. It's very, like today, it's hard. It's hard. But as a community, you pull together. As a church, family, you pull together. Every little light that she put in the community, everything that person, to make that person better. And they think about her, you know? And that's what keeps her alive, is the great memory of her. I think of her as an angel. You know, an angel that's watching over us. And she's where she wants to be, with God. And I believe that she's there.
I remember driving down to Harris County for Henry's funeral. I was very angry about this. Henry was my friend. The anger was directed at the murderer. I wanted to look into the faces, what was happening, to see whether or not there was any semblance of anger, and I didn't see it. The funeral was one of a celebration of the life of Henry and Adrian as well, because I did not hear anyone. The comments about him was just mad, deranged, whatever. It was about his accomplishments. So that community embraced him. I had to come to my senses in terms of forgiveness to understand that this murderer was also Henry's son. So I had to change my outlook, experience in the beginning.
Imagine what was going through their minds during the car ride away.
Just that a young man's got problems has destroyed him with words. Maybe stop him from doing evil. But it didn't work. It didn't work. Sister Philomena didn't know what to expect. And the entire time when she had the opportunity, I know she spoke to Adrian and questioned him, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You don't need to be doing this. She could turn around to Adrian before he killed her and cut her throat and tell him that she forgives him. That was her life. That was her Christian life, her belief as far as being kind and loving to everyone, no matter how evil they were. And I know this is in the back of Adrian's mind, and he remembers everything that he did, and he's going to remember that moment when she looked at him and said, I forgive you. Lucy, because she contacted the police and said, listen, this is a description of my vehicle. So now they put out a bolo in that particular area for the vehicle Adrian had stolen and is driving in, and it gets spotted several hours later.
The dead end of Stanhope Avenue was filled with police vehicles surrounding the car believed to be driven by Adrian Robinson, the man accused of killing his father and abducting 2 nuns in Georgia.
Virginia police arrest Adrian and take him away.
Those video just brings back, I guess, the memories when we found out everything first happened, and which led to all the questions. And then you're asking yourself, why? I knew Sister Philomena. It was a very small community. Everybody knew everybody. Some of the facts come out and you realize what's happening, and then we knew he had made this awful choice and awful mistake, and something he'd have to live with for the rest of his life. And unfortunately we couldn't help him at that point.
Mike, come on.
Been around him my whole life, been a great guy. He'd helped us, we'd helped him. And at this point, there's nothing you could do for the guy. He's a different person now. He's not the same person. The Adrian that I knew is not there anymore. It's just the Adrian.
What could have led him to get to this level of evil? You want to answer the question, why? What led you to that point? What led you to the point of kidnapping 2 Catholic nuns? Why would you turn around and murder her? What was the point behind all this? That's a relief picture. A relief that this animal is a patrol vehicle in custody. That's what I see here. And he's got his eyes closed like he's resting and probably thinking to himself, that's it, it's all over with, I don't have to run anymore. There was no evidence found indicating that there was a rape involved with his father. What we learned later on from the investigators in Virginia was Adrian, during an interview told him that he was fearful that he was being followed by the Polish mafia and by aliens. So that there is a clinking or operating. Maybe everything's not sparking all at one time. Adrian knew exactly what he was doing. Murdering his father, shooting him 16 times, going to the nun's house, kidnapping the nuns, and leaving the state of Georgia, where he then went up to Virginia and booked a motel where he was going to complete his crime spree, so to speak. This was something that he knew exactly what he was doing on how to stay out of the public eye and avoid law enforcement. People still have a lot of questions, because Adrian never went to trial and sat on the stand. Questions couldn't be answered. So many things could have been asked him by the prosecuting attorney, why, who, what, where, when, how, and got an insight onto why he did these horrific crimes and the evil that he had inside him.
All right.
My dad was a wrestling coach. Well, I think my dad's relationship with Adrian was like a second dad to him.
New state champ.
During our wrestling practices, we always, we were coached about wrestling, but my dad would also give you these life lessons. At school, he came to my dad for help. If Adrian would have come to my dad while everything was going on, I always had a hope that maybe my dad could have helped him and prevented anything further from happening. I think it just, broke my dad's heart. I mean, he worked with this guy and grew up together. You know, he was like another kid to my dad, I believe. I did.
He could have done it so many different ways. He could have left them alone. He could have taken their car and just gone. He could have just... So many scenarios that could have happened that day that Sister Lucy... I had a hard time with it. I had a hard time until one night I wasn't sleeping well. And then I could hear Sister Philomena. She'd snap her fingers and tell us what we need to do, or direction. She'd get our attention. And, I saw a beautiful light, beautiful, bright, glowing white light. And she reached out and she touched my face. And she said, everything's going to be all right. Everything's okay. And from that moment on, she was where she was.
I knew Sister Philomena. We'd see each other, our paths would cross. Well, a week before all this happened, I happened to be going into the post office, and she was coming out. And I said, Sister Phil, thank you for everything. He says, no, Chief Colberg, thank you for everything you do. And we had an understanding that we're here to help people, to make life better for everybody. Regardless of your profession, whether you're a nun, a priest, a police officer, or a social worker or something, we're here to make people's lives better. And when she died, we lost a good that would help people make a difference in their lives. Sister Philomena was the Mother Teresa of Harris County. That's the way she was. She helped everybody out. She didn't care about herself. She just cared about other people. And she was taken away from everybody. So many lives, so many hearts she touched. And it's all gone because of this animal. The reason he's still alive is the Catholic Church. As long as he cooperated, they didn't want him to see the death penalty. And he did. He cooperated, Sister Philomena. Because of my faith, I'm asked to forgive. I don't understand it sometimes. I don't understand how you can forgive someone like that has taken such a wonderful person from this world. I'll have to answer to that someday, but right now, in my heart, I can't forgive him for what he's done.
Oh, I believe in evil. I do believe in evil. The Adrian that I knew was not an evil person. So I think you have Adrian before, and now you have a mentally affected Adrian who's just a completely different person. And think about the evil that was in that mentally challenged Adrian. Could I forgive him if he took one of my immediate family's lives? You know, it'd be difficult to do. It really would. I hate that it happened. I don't understand everything. I do. It's hard seeing, someone you're so close to do something so wrong.
Wow. It's a remarkable resemblance. I look at what the circumstances were that led up to this boy taking his father's life. I don't believe Adrian is evil. I think something flipped with him for him to shoot someone 16 times. It was a kind of madness. Resulted in Henry's death. I mean, it's sad to know that a person you contribute to birthing can end up actually taking your life. This is a sad commentary for Henry, a sad commentary. And in prison. So 2 lives were lost, resulting in a family never being the same, never feeling whole again at all.
I feel sadness for him. Do I have anger toward Adrian? No. God's gonna take care of him. God's the judgment. God's the judge. I'm not angry. I've prayed for his soul. And I've prayed that he's had mercy. Ask for mercy. I pray in my heart. Those that have been in touch with Sister Philomena, I pray for more healing for them. That their love will grow for other people. I pray, Almighty God and Father, that no one else in this world is hurt. Pray for their souls, for the dearly departed. Thank you, Almighty God and Father. Amen.
My beautiful baby sister. You can see the light in her cheeks. You see it in her face. The goodness. The only thing that keeps you holding on to just was, just put in that trunk somehow. But then she's free. She's made it, and she's somewhere, just hurt. You can't stop that movie from playing in your head. You can't make it go away.
To me, it was like a jigsaw with one fairly sizable piece missing in the center. That's her body, victim. And you have the fact that he's with her that night, but you don't have anything that's really concrete. I knew in my mind from everything that we had that he was the one and only suspect. He killed her.
Who is that?
That's the devil. When he goes off, he's very, very well. Don't kill yourself. I went down there with a gun, and I was actually aimed to kill him then, because I had it with him. And I said, Steve, I'll kill you. I just cocked it and I said, oh boy, if you ever beat my wife again, I'm gonna kill you. I'd give my life for hers.
You don't see regret. You see the arrogance. That's what you see. That's a predator right there. He would kill somebody today in a heartbeat. No doubt. We're having this conversation 30-some years later, after it happened. This is all the evidence that we collected.
This case had a grip on the whole community. This case was almost an addiction for every officer that worked on it. All of them wanted closure. All of them. Volunteered their time to look for her back in 1980. And looked in the lake and looked along the riverbanks and looked in the woods. Gina Hall was never found. I realized there is nobody looking for this girl. Nobody. This is someone's sister, daughter, best friend. She deserves. The goal's to find her.
My beautiful baby sister. It was her senior picture in high school. And she's just light in her cheeks. You see it in her face, the goodness. The summer of 1980 changed my life. I was 21 years old. Gina Hall was my 18-year-old little sister. I was working my master's and she had just transferred together. Gina and I were opposite. I was the bullheaded, hard-nosed, tomboy girl. She was the beautiful, angelic, sweet person. We had mentor down because we had a couple of days, and we planned to go dancing. I couldn't go with her because my boyfriend of 3.5 years and I had a fight. And I was very upset. And she left and came barreling back inside because she forgot her ankle bracelet, which we both had the same ankle bracelet with 2 hearts interlocked for our sister. The room floor just bawling my little eyes out like a big old baby. And she came back and said, "Sis, just follow your heart, not your head, and you'll know what to do." And that was the last verbally face-to-face words that she said to me. And so she went on without me because we didn't think anything of it. The phone woke me up. Hello? And in my dazed sleep, not thinking anything could really... Elena? Gina? Where are you? When she said, "I'm at the lake." And I thought, what in the world is she doing at a lake? I mean, maybe she met some friends and went with them. Well, who are you with? And she had one word. Steve. And then the phone clicked dead.
Gina?
I thought I could probably just fall back asleep and she'll just come on home. Anyhow, she never did. I woke up and she wasn't there. When I woke up, I thought back that morning about her phone. Who's Steve? I don't know a Steve. Gina doesn't know a Steve. We don't have a Steve in our life. Who is Steve? I knew immediately it's not good. Something was wrong. I literally began calling everyone I knew. My friends finally found the car abandoned on a road. What has happened to her? Where is she?
The car was found on a country road about 7/10 of a mile from the main highway that went from Pulaski County into the city of Radford. Crosses the New River, and it was just sitting there.
I talked to her last night. She went out dancing.
They had taken a statement from her as to the phone call that she received that night from Gina and the fact that Gina had not come back. And then finding the car, of course, something wasn't right. It clearly signaled that something was not right. One thing that was of interest is that the car seat, it was pushed all the way back. And Gina was just a little over 5 feet tall. There's no way that Gina would have driven with the car seat all the way back. She couldn't have reached the pedals. State trooper finds blood in the trunk of the car on the mat. We've got a problem.
The actual place where the car had been abandoned, there's something about that road that was just very dark and eerie. You know, as young people, you ever ride down just a little ways and go, I'm not going that way. That's that road, standing there around the car. And I'm thinking, why here? How did she get, how did this car get here? We're still not connecting at that moment until the blood is found in the trunk that something bad has happened. Very hopeful still in that moment. The only thing that keeps you holding on to just the thought that maybe she was hurt, maybe she was, just put in that trunk somehow, but then she's free. She's made it, and she's somewhere, just hurt. We needed our objective. I knew that I needed to get the word out, and the radio station seemed the most logical place to try to get the word out. So I made that drive up there and convinced them to announce Gina and where she was last seen so that maybe someone knew something.
Bill King went to the police to tell them, here's what I know. I don't know if it's of any value to you or not, but here it is. He said that he and Epperly went for the purpose of maybe Epperly, no doubt, would have been dressed nicely. I think that he would come across as very charming, nice looking. He would have been very impressive. I think most females that he would have approached. Bill King lived at this very nice 3-story home right on Clater Lake. So that night, Epperly asked if he could get the key to the place. She believed he was a good guy. They got there somewhere around 4 o'clock in the morning. They walked in the house, and his chest off, bare chest with a blue towel, thinking that there might be some sexual relations. They decided to go around to the lake and get in and swim. And not much longer after that, Epperly said, we've got to go. And that's all he knows at that point. But Bill said they did not see Gina. He was just totally cooperative. Epperly acknowledged that he had been with Gina. He acknowledged that they had driven to the house on the lake. He acknowledged that they went inside. He said that they made out a little bit, that he tried to go further with her, but she was not in her. They drove back to Radford. they went to his house where she dropped him off, essentially. And that's the last he knew about it. The polygraph examiner asked Mr. Epperly, "Did you kill Gina Hall?" Regarding Gina Hall, did you have anything to do with her disappearance? Steve Epperly failed the polygraph. Again, it just made you wonder what was going on. Where was Gina?
I knew Stephen Epperly since 1965. He could be one of the nicest, kindest, politest human beings you'd ever want to meet. And then we could be sitting talking like you are, and anything could set him off at any time, and he would just go berserk. The stories, we were sitting at the Sunday dinner table at Epperly's house, everybody just talking, in general conversation about everything, and somebody said something to Steve. He just jumped up and turned the whole table over. And you didn't know even what you said provoked him. He was just like that. And I would sit and wonder, I don't pretend to understand how you can go from here to here in that. I don't know what happens in his mind. So nice, so cordial, so caring. You first meet him, you think he's a super guy. And only later you find out that guy's the devil.
Who is that?
That's the devil. I can tell with the eyes and the look on his face, he's pissed at somebody. He had that look a lot when he went off. I knew that look real well. He's a very violent person when he goes off. He's very, very violent. Don't kid yourself. He's just a violent human being. To my knowledge, best of my knowledge, he broke his sister's arm. He busted his mother's right eardrum. He knocked his 80-year-old grandmother down the steps. My wife showed out several times with black eyes where he had hit her. I just got fed up with him beating on her with a gun. And I was actually aimed to kill him then, because I had it with him. I'm a good person. I'm a Christian. I'll give you the shirt off my back if you need me. I'll do anything in the world for you that I can to help you. But if you cross me and you really put the screws to me, I'll cut your throat with no remorse. And I don't care who knows. I've lived by that all my life. I pulled up in front of the house. Here he came walking out, huffing and puffing. I knew he was going to jump on me. So when he got to the car, I just stuck a gun to it. I said, "Steve, I'll key you." I just cocked him. I said, "Oh boy, you lay one finger on you last, I'm going to key you." And I told him that then. I said, "If you ever beat my wife again, I'm going to kill you." And I do thank the Lord I didn't have to kill him. But there's times I do wish I had.
We pulled up on the back side of the house where there's two sets of sliding glass doors. That's when the state trooper pointed out the blood stain in the carpet to me. I think it's about this size, maybe of a dinner plate. It was sort of dark. It was on shag carpet. The blood stain was sort of matted, like somebody tried to rub it up. We started just looking around at everything, and then we found blood on a couple of other things. I remember in a downstairs bathroom, there was just a small piece of blood on the frame around the light switch. it was just a handful of items there where it had specks of blood or a little splatter of blood. All of that combined told the attack there. It's pretty hard not to draw a conclusion that there was a homicide. This is sort of a den that we are on the bottom level, and there's a staircase that goes up to the second floor. It's a broken ankle bracelet. And it had a couple of joined hearts on it. The ankle bracelet was Gina's. They clearly indicated that Gina had been there.
Of my life. This is taken from down at the lake edge looking up. And I'm looking at this house. To me, it looks like a luxury home. You know, it looks like a beautiful, picturesque home. And I just could not imagine how my sister could have been murdered in that house. We're at the lake house with people everywhere, policemen everywhere. I'm standing down near the lake, and I stood there with my boyfriend looking at it, and I realized that's when it hit me. Gina's not coming home. Gina's not ever coming home. She died right here. I knew it. I felt this, I don't know if it's a sisterly bond or what, but I felt her pain. That if there were blood here and there was blood there, how brave, how hard did Gina fight? You can't stop that movie from playing in your head when you know the details of what is in that lake house. You can't make it go away. All you see is that beautiful little sister of yours fighting and fighting for her life. How did this happen? You know, if I had been with her, that wouldn't have happened. I just knew it. And I just broke. I mean, it just broke me. It was a point where I couldn't deal with it. Had to leave. You know. That trip driving from there home was the most horrific thing I've ever experienced personally, because I knew she was gone. And not just gone in the manner that she was gone. I literally screamed. My body shook, and because I knew she was never coming home. Never.
We had plenty of solid circumstantial evidence that pointed to one person and one person only, and that was Steve Epperly. The only thing we were missing had ever been a conviction for a murder without a body. We've got to make sure you have enough evidence to convict him. And you have the fact that he's with her that night, the fact that there's some blood stains in the house, which is very incriminating, but you don't have anything that's really concrete. The blue towel was found in a tree, and that was in the area on the Radford side of the river. What was found on the blue towel became very, very incriminating. The analyst told me that he scraped the blue towel down and literally got, like, from that towel. And those carpet fibers matched the ones from the den, the shag carpet into the lake house. So we theorized that he went to the carpet, got that blue towel, tried to wipe it all up as best he could. I think every stitch of clothing, same side of the river and in the brushy area as the towel, and down the right side of her white jacket were bloodstains. Further indication of a violent attack. There was also a head hair in the clothes. The lab analyst was able to say that it matched the characteristics, color, and so forth. Really, to me, it was like a jigsaw with one fairly sizable piece missing in the center. That's her body, but everything else was there.
In 2007 at Radford, we just finished a murder trial. And at the end of the trial, my boss came up to me and he said, "Now go find Gina Hall." And in my mind, I said, "Who's Gina Hall?" I was not familiar with the case, records room, and found what little information we had as far as the case file on Gina Hall. And I just found that it's a tragedy that nobody's looking for this girl, because somebody should be. There's so many rumors and theories and ideas. You just got to investigate the best you can. This guy calls the office and he talks to one of my dispatchers and said, "Look, I need to talk to your boss. I don't know who it is, but I've got information on a Gene Hall." I'm like, "Okay." So I call him. He's like, "It's going to sound really weird." I'm like, "I've been talking to Gene Hall." I said, "Gina?" He's like, "Yeah, a girl." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "So spiritually?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I'm a medium. I'm open to different ways to investigate, different ways to get leads." I said, "What information do you have?" He said, "I think I know."
This is the letter that I cherish the most because she wrote it months before she was murdered. She quoted Corinthians 13 to me. Words, "Love is never glad about injustice, but rejoices when truth wins out." And then she signed it, "I love you, and I hope one day we both can live up to that paragraph." Months before she was murdered. This is my focus. This is what that stays by my vanity, and it hangs right by the mirror. And every day I see it. Every day.
The medium takes me to the Deadman Center at Radford, and he describes to me what it looked like in 1980. He describes the clearing. Basically looks like a garden. She's in that clearing. Shows me where it's at. That's where she's at. First, it's a ground penetrating radar. They come down, they scan, and it says, "We found an anomaly." I'm like, "Do you think it's her or not?" He said, "It would match size and shape of a small female." freaking kidding me? I'm like, what are we going to do now? He's like, you and I are going to go see the president of the university and get I was so excited. I just it felt right. You know, you've got the medium, whether you believe it or not. What he said was accurate, and the description he gave me matched the spot, backed up the medium. We dug the hole. We got in the hole, and he took his hat off and started wiping his head, and he's like, I don't understand. And he said, there's nothing here in this hole. There's no reason. There's nothing to explain that. Nothing. He was baffled. I was heartbroken. I mean, I really thought we found her. And I got emotional, and I was just like, what do I do now? I knew it was just a dead end. It was heartbreaking. But there's no giving up.
Steve Epperly was a wolf in sheep's clothing. I think he's such egomaniac, a narcissist. I don't think Epperly really has a conscience at all. It was just a ho-hum experience for him. It was no big deal. Wasn't concerned at all not to have a body. He's a monster. A very uncaring person. You have to say to yourself, what makes him tick? What's in his mind that he wouldn't mind just eliminating some 18-year-old college girl and then throwing her away like a piece of garbage? What was in his mind?
The phone rang. My wife answered it. She talked to her mother a long time. And she hung up. She said, Mama told me this girl has disappeared. And Steve was the last known person with her. The atmosphere in Radford was, he didn't do it, because most of the people in Radford, the side of Steve they knew was a nice guy. You know, this guy, like most people said, he was a guy you'd invite home for Sunday dinner with your daughter. That's the image he played. They didn't know he ain't normal, I can tell you that, by any stretch of the imagination. And I thought it was so odd that I never heard Steve say, I didn't kill Gina Hall. He never said that. All he ever said was, they can never get nobody. They don't get me.
When the trial began, I was the first witness called. And that's the first time I'd seen Epperly. Ever. In a way, it's almost impossible to describe the emotion being put on a witness stand in the murder of someone you love very, very much. And then to look down there and see Stephen Epperly's face. To really see him for the first time. Apparent to me, looking back, the arrogance and the confidence that was sitting there in front of me. He did not think for one moment that he would go to jail. Not one little bit.
I think he's a sick individual. I think he's narcissistic. little conscious, if any at all. I knew in my mind from everything that we had that he was the one and only suspect. He killed her. It was taken there to that lake house. I think he was after sex. She rebuffed sexual advances, is our theory of the case. That angered him, and I think he started beating on her. And he killed her.
It was such relief, but it wasn't like a feeling of, yay, we won. We didn't have that feeling. We hadn't won. We got to go back home and have Christmas without Gina. We got to plan a funeral and we don't even have a body to put in the ground. I mean, this isn't...
So when I went in, I said, here's what I want. I only want her. I don't want any details. I don't care how to. And he thought about it and he said, I'm an innocent man. Everybody set me up. The judge, my lawyers, all those witnesses. I'm like, just stop. You look at those eyes. You don't see regret. You see the arrogance. That's what you see. They're right there. And don't be deceived by his age. He would kill somebody today in a heartbeat if he got out. No doubt. When I look back, I didn't think there was much of a chance that he would give it up. And, knowing him as much as I learned about him, he feels like you can't. That's the personal part. There's no giving up. We didn't accomplish the goal. The goal's to find her. I'm still here. I'm still looking.
This is a very, very special picture in the closet and had not had out for 20 years. And I just opened it up one day, and there it was. It was probably taken a week before she was murdered. It would have been the last one, and it came right at the right moment to give me a sense of peace. It just was, come, don't worry, it's going to be okay. We're in this together. That's what it said to me. The story that she left willingly, I always knew in my heart was not the truth. We didn't have Gina's body to act really knew exactly what happened to her so that we could heal and have full closure. We're just trying to heal.
Deserve that. Sad. Very sad. She didn't deserve that, and I hope someday to meet her. And I hope she knows that we weren't all bad people.
When you meet Gina,
I'm sorry. I wish I'd have been there to stop him. I'd give my life for hers.
The town of Merrow's End was the kind of place maps forgot on purpose. It sat in the crook of two ridges, folded under a sky that looked like old Papperthin, creased, slightly yellowed at the corners. People who lived there liked those seams. They liked the way the town kept its own hours and the way the fog collected around the shuttered bakery at dawn like a pet. There were two churches sown with a bell that never tolled and another with a clock that stopped at 3:17, and a row of houses so close their eaves nearly touched. At the lane's end stood the Hollow House, a squat, stubborn thing with shutters like folded hands and a porch that seemed to frown. Children dared one another to touch its stoop. Teenagers parked cars in the lane and smoked and laughed in sharp bursts about who could sit longest on the porch swing and pretend not to be afraid. The adults told stories over hedges and porches about Hester Knight, a midwife who once lived there and who kept secrets like coins in jars. If your baby lived, you left a ribbon. If it did not, you left nothing, and people watched. The story rearranged itself depending on the teller. Sometimes Hester was miracle worker, sometimes witch, sometimes a woman who had learned that small towns survive by a private economy of favors and omissions. No one had lived in the Hollow House for 3 generations, and that suited Merrow's End fine. People liked to imagine the house as a cupboard of unspent things, old dolls, a piano that had been closed against noise, a stack of letters, photographs curled like dried petals. They liked to picture it patient and dusty. Then, after a long ruin of rain and fog, the Hollow House changed hands. Evelyn Price arrived with a car that rattled along like an old argument, and a head full of an academic's hobbyist ledgers, marginalia, other people's pasts rendered tidy. She specialized in cataloging small histories, parish records, rent books, the quiet violence of municipal minutes. She moved because her marriage had ended in small, precise ways, and because cities sometimes make grief too loud. Merrow's End offered the kind of silence that felt like permission to unpack, permission to rearrange. The Hollow House sat at the end of Hollow Lane like an old sentence. Hedges had been allowed to fester into thickets. Windows were boarded with planks crossed in hasty X, as if someone had tried to stop light from coming through. A brass knocker shaped like an owl hung at the door, and when Evelyn pressed it, the sound that traveled across the wood was dry and final, like a single coin dropped into a well. She moved in with a plan. She cleared rooms with the same economy she used to clear archive shelves, remove, catalog, store. She hung lights that made the ceilings look less cavernous. She found small notes tucked behind skirting board shelf, a recipe, a child's rhyme. The words not yet on a scrap of paper, and cataloged them in a ledger that felt like an altar. Date, item, location, remark. It was work that calmed her. It was a way to make things accountable. On her third night, a sound woke her, a low, staccato tapping that seemed to come from within the plaster itself. Evelyn traced it the way a historian follows a clue. Beneath the sitting room wallpaper, she found thin incisions in the lath, tiny marks repeated, carefully spaced, as if someone had been counting. The lines formed numbers and initials: K. 12, JT. 9, man felt as alive as fingerprints. She chalked them in her notebook. The rational part of her offered sensible explanations: previous renovations, a child's habit, a mason's mark. But another part, the old small voice that kept her up over marginally, felt a prickle of attention. Names have weight. They hold shape. The house's second sound came 3 nights later, a slow dragging, like a fingernail pulled along the inside of a bowl. Evelyn traced it to the parlor. The piano sat there, its keys a ragged mouth. When she lifted the lid, she found the mechanism hollowed of hammers and felt as if whatever music it knew had been removed. On the underside of the lid, in faded pencil, were words: keep the names. We will come for the tally. The handwriting slanted like someone who had been careful with language, because language had been their business. She slept badly after that, waking with the impression the house listened. Neighbors came with casseroles and suspicious affectionaries. Kate's with lavender sachets, Tom Muir with a jar of pickle sand. They gave warnings folded into pies. Hollow places take what you feed them, Mrs. Kate said, voice low as a secret. Evelyn smiled and wrote it down as fieldwork. A scholar's instinct is to demystify. Then the house asked a question. It began in photographs. Beneath the stairs, Evelyn found a sacking-wrapped box smelling of peat. Inside were snapshot sepia, curled with people who might have been grandparents she never met, a woman with luminous eyes, a child clutching a doll missing an eye. On the backs were names in different hands and, on one, a phrase that tightened her chest, given LR keep. She made notes. The initials recurred in the lath tally marks. LR appeared at intervals. Someone had at different points written keep, return, and sometimes left an empty space like a pause. That night the tapping changed rhythm. For taps, too. Through the wood she heard speech, old syllables braided with wind. Give us the list, the voice seemed to say, muffled as if through cotton. Evelyn laughed into the dark and returned to her ledger, writing, found, box of photographs, observations, repeated initials, possible ritual tally. Days folded into a pattern. Photographs shifted places. One on the mantel when she had left it on the piano. Another inside her jacket pocket. Small things vanished, a brass thimble. A button and reappeared as offerings. A neighbor's dog asleep on the parlor rug. A child's shoe on the pillow. The house traded, and what it took had a logic. It wanted tokens with stories. Evelyn's ledger grew. The marks in the lath multiplied. The house's appetite was not a hunger for riches, but for names, and the attachments they carried. She followed those names into parish records as if tracing a migratory route. L.R. was Lottie Rouse, born 1912, a midwife's assistant. J.T. led to Jacob Tomlin and a ledger that recorded births and deaths with a clinical absence. A remarks column where entries read unattended, no father present, and once, repeatedly. Kept. The word kept read like a footnote to fate. Evelyn found herself shuttling late into the university archive, microfilm humming like distant insects. Her notes became thinner and more urgent. When she asked Mrs. Cates what kept meant, the old woman's face folded into the patient ferocity of memory. Sometimes they took names, she said. Sometimes they took things. And once, when a woman had nothing, they took a memory. The house Hester's work, it's not spiteful like people think. It's efficient. It collects scarcity. Collects, Evelyn said. The term sounded clinical in her mouth. Mrs. Cates put down a bag of sugar. You keep things so others can keep living. Back then we didn't have pity on a ledger. We traded. It's how a town keeps a roof. Evelyn had come to the Hollow House to catalog pasts, not to become an exhibit. But the house's ledger pulled at her like gravity. One morning a photograph of a baby lay on the mantel. On the back, in a script she recognized from the parish register, the note said, given, E. Price keep. She had not been born in Marrow's End. She had no memory of this house as a child. The photograph prickled in her palm like an accusation. Had someone, some midwife or neighbor, written her name into the house's accounts? Before she could consent, the idea startled her in ways that made reason recede. The house's tendency to name and bind blurred with her own history, until she felt less like a resident and more like ledgered property. Small prices came first: a teaspoon, a hair ribbon, a child's drawing. She handed them over like feeding a stray. The house's tally clenched and grew. She tried to refuse, wedging a box of photographs beneath a crawlspace and bracing it with a chair. The tapping escalated, a chorus of household things sounding out in the new weather. She dreamed of rooms made entirely of names, stacked like plates that might topple. In the dream a figure of paper and ink approached and said, "You are the name you keep." Refusing the house produced consequences. Her mother, who had driven down for a visit, suddenly could not recall the names of streets she had navigated since she was young. A neighbor's boy left his spelling book and forgot letters he had known. People laughed it off as fog or fatigue. But Evelyn felt a thread linking the house to the forgetting, an appetite that spread. A child knocked at her door one evening, rain on his shoes and a wooden horse gripped to his chest. He had found the toy by the river, he said. "Can you keep it?" he asked, innocent and practical in the way only children are. Evelyn hesitated. She had returned a photograph once and seen its ripple of relief and took the horse. The house accepted it. That night a photograph of the child's family was beneath her pillow, their faces a notch in the ledger without the child's name on their lips. Then the house's requests became heavier. Not trinkets, but memory weights. A neighbor forgot an anniversary. A baker lost the recipe everyone had loved. Small erasures multiplied. The ledger's margins filled with notations like easing of bearer, 3 days. Local amnesia, partial. Evelyn tried to counteract it by returning items when she could. Once, she tracked a photograph back to the grandmother of the boy with the wooden horse and handed it over. The woman cried and pressed the photograph to her chest as if it were a pulse. For a time the forgetting eased, but the house adjusted. It reached beyond objects to names in the world, living people whose remembering sustained families. A mother would blank on a child's middle name. An elderly man would forget the face of his brother. Forgetting was thinned and scattered like ash. The ledger tightened like a noose. The house had learned that names are currency. To hold a name is to move the town's balance. Evelyn felt the role of keeper pressing into her. People slid envelopes under her door. They asked her to deal with things. She learned to weigh the cost each time. To keep this photograph would spare a family grief, but bind the memory to the house. To return it might restore someone's remembering, but invite the ledger's hunger for an offset. She grew blunt and practical about mercy, recording outcomes in columns. Item kept, effect observed. The columns filled until they bent like the spines of old books. She tried negotiation. She staged gatherings in her parlor, a few neighbors and the persistent, practical-minded. A chorus of voices learning to speak the names aloud. They read recipes, recited the names of streets, rehearsed births and birthdays until the air felt full and less appetizing to a thing that fed on silence. Children learned to sing names like charms. Bakery owners stamped initials into loaves. It was clumsy, sincere, and it bought them breathing room. In the quiet hours, Evelyn discovered another ledger tucked behind a loose panel. The Hollow House's own account book. Its pages were thin as breath, ink faded, columns counting names beside dates. It catalogued exchanges made in older times when the town could not spare charity. Without a trade breast fighting for rent, a favor for a favor, a memory for medicine. Hester Knight's hand had left terse annotations, kept reserved for village and, in a different ink, binding, necessary. Confronted with those entries, Evelyn understood the house as both jailer and archivist. It was a device born of necessity, a method of hiding the rawness of survival. With a ledger as neat as a show box, but ledgers ask for a keeper. Someone must take on the accounting. She resisted for a while, but resistance in small towns is costly. She watched neighbors' memories fray and rallied them to read aloud at gatherings, and tape names to photographs. She taught bakers and midwives the practice of doubling labels. She learned to write in the Hollow House's thin hand, tracing the incisions in the lath and making notes that could be read by people and, perhaps, by the house itself. The act of naming out loud spread the weight. When a name moved through the town, it seemed to lose the singular gravity that made it delectable. Years folded. Evelyn grew practiced. She became, in small and exhausting ways, the town's ledger keeper and its activist. The woman who would take a photograph for safekeeping when a family feared disgrace, and who would press it between pages and mark in the ledger the terms of the trade. She learned the arithmetic of compassion, what to keep and what to return, how to measure the consequences. She mended what she could and made careful notes. The Hollow House's tapping never quite stopped, but it became less like a demand and more like a clock marking dues paid and dues outstanding. People argued she had bargained with a thing no one should trust, that she had become complicit in theft. Others said she had been a steward, the person who learned to manage an inconvenient system without letting it devour the living. Both were true. The ledger eroded Evelyn's edges. Her hands trembled in old age like pages turning. She slept sometimes with the ledger at her bedside, its spine softened from handling. She had kept so many names that she could feel them line her ribs. On her last night she sat at her desk and wrote a single line across the ledger's last clean page. Keep the names. Give them room to live. It was less a command than a plea. She left the book in a drawer for the next person, folded the town's manners into ink, and slept. After she died, townspeople said she had been the only one who could read the Hollow House's ledger. Some called her saint, some a complicity. Children still dared each other to touch the stoop. Teenagers still laughed in bursts. But there was a practice now that made the house's appetite less voracious. Names were spoken aloud, recipes recited, photos labeled in ink and tape and duplicate notes. People handed Eve's ledger from hand to hand when necessary. The Hollow House still tapped in the walls on windless nights, but sometimes on those nights a neighbor would stand at their window and say a name so the sound traveled and diluted and lost the singularity that once made it desirable. The town never fully rid itself of the ledger's need. Nothing that long-standing slides away cleanly, but the community learned the cost of keeping and the virtue of sharing memory as a small, practical defense. The Hollow House remained at Hollow Lane's end, patient as a cupboard, and sometimes it still rearranged photographs. When that happened, someone would gather the street and read all the labels aloud, so the house could not fold a name into a secret alone. Evelyn's ledger is kept now in the town's small museum, taught by a woman who learned Evelyn's method of careful naming. A faded line, added by an unknown hand, reads, "We keep, but do not steal the heart that remembers." No one knows whether Hester Knight ever intended kindness or merely efficiency. Both live in the same house. Children run past the porch with borrowed courage. Couples in love post names on bread tags and tape them to frames. The Hollow House taps its old rhythm. Sometimes the tap becomes a memory's metronome. Sometimes it is just wood settling. On the nights when the moon is low and the fog rolls in like someone breathing through a shawl, a hush gathers on Hollow Lane. People step outside and call the names they carry. The sound moves through the town like a small, steady tide, not a bargain or a bargain's end, but a community attempting to hold its own story together so the house, if it must keep, cannot keep it all alone.